In early June of 1944, Europe held its breath. Across the English Channel, an armada unlike anything in human history was assembling in silence. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of vehicles, and millions of men waited for a single order. Yet, on the other side of the continent, Adolf Hitler slept. To him, the Atlantic Wall, his massive chain of bunkers, mines, and artillery, stretching from Norway to southern France, was impenetrable. The Allies, he believed, would never dare to cross the Channel in force. And if they did, it would not be where they planned to land. Hitler was convinced the real invasion would come at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point between England and France. His belief was reinforced by deception. Fake radio traffic, inflatable tanks, phantom armies commanded by General George Patton, at least on paper. Allied intelligence fed Germany exactly what it wanted to hear. By June 1944, Hitler was so confident that Normandy was a diversion that he placed his strongest panzer divisions far from the beaches that truly mattered. To Hitler, D-Day was not yet a threat. It was a feint. At 6:30 a.m. on June 6th, the illusion shattered. The sky over Normandy exploded with sound. Thousands of Allied aircraft roared overhead. Paratroopers dropped behind enemy lines. Naval guns thundered from the sea. Reports flooded German headquarters. Enemy landings, multiple beaches, massive force. Still, confusion ruled. Hitler's commanders hesitated. Was this the real invasion, or merely the distraction before the main blow at Calais? The delay would prove catastrophic. One detail would later become infamous. When the invasion began, Adolf Hitler was asleep. No one dared wake him. German generals needed his personal authorization to move armored divisions. Without it, tanks remained idle, while Allied troops fought and died on the beaches. By the time Hitler awoke and grasped the scale of the invasion, hours had been lost, irreplaceable hours. Nowhere was the cost higher than Omaha Beach. Here, American soldiers faced steep cliffs, brutal machine gun fire, and some of the strongest German defenses in Normandy. Waves of men were cut down before reaching shore. Boats sank, officers died within minutes, entire units were pinned to the sand. Yet the Americans did not retreat. Small groups pushed forward, without orders, without coordination, driven by sheer will. By midday, against all odds, the beach was breached. For the first time, Hitler began to understand something terrifying. This was not a British war. This was an American one. As reports reached Berlin, the numbers were staggering. Over 150,000 Allied troops landed on the first day alone. Thousands of tanks and vehicles followed. An endless supply chain poured across the Channel. This was not a raid, not a probe, not a diversion. It was an industrial invasion, powered by American factories, American manpower, and American logistics. Hitler had prepared for courage. He had not prepared for capacity. Privately, Hitler admitted what he would never say publicly. Germany was no longer fighting old European empires. It was fighting the new world. The United States produced more aircraft in a month than Germany could in a year. Its oil reserves were virtually limitless. Its soldiers kept coming, fresh, trained, and well supplied. For Hitler, D-Day marked a psychological turning point. Victory in the West was no longer likely. It was becoming impossible. When Hitler finally authorized the release of panzer divisions, it was too late. Allied air power dominated the skies. American and British fighter bombers destroyed bridges, convoys, and tanks before they could reach the front. German counterattacks were fragmented, disorganized, and crushed. The window to throw the Allies back into the sea had closed forever. In the weeks that followed, Normandy turned into a grinding battle. Hedgerows, villages, endless artillery barrages. The Americans adapted quickly, developing new tactics, new weapons, and relentless momentum. Each mile gained cost blood, but each mile also brought Germany closer to collapse. Hitler demanded no retreat. His generals knew better. Inside the Führer's headquarters, rage replaced confidence. Hitler blamed his generals, his allies, fate itself. He refused to accept reality, that the Western Front was lost. While American forces broke out of Normandy and raced toward Paris, Hitler still fantasized about miracle weapons and last-minute reversals. But the truth was unavoidable. The Americans were coming, and they were not stopping. In August 1944, Paris was liberated. Crowds filled the streets. German forces retreated in chaos. The myth of Nazi invincibility lay in ruins. For Hitler, D-Day had triggered a chain reaction he could no longer control. Germany was now fighting on two unstoppable fronts, the Red Army from the east and the Americans from the west. D-Day did not end the war, but it sealed its outcome. From the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Berlin, the road was paved with sacrifice, but the direction was set. Hitler had finally realized the truth too late. This was not just another European war. It was a war against American power, American industry, and American resolve. And it was a war he could never win. He doubled down. From his underground bunker, Hitler planned one final desperate gamble, a massive counteroffensive in the west, a surprise attack through the Ardennes forest aimed at splitting the American and British armies. He believed the Americans lacked the stomach for prolonged war. He was wrong. In December 1944, German forces smashed into thinly held American lines. Snow fell, visibility vanished, chaos erupted. For a moment, it worked. American units were surrounded, supplies ran low, the front bulged inward, giving the battle its name. Hitler saw hope, but once again he misunderstood the enemy. American resistance. At places like Bastogne, American soldiers refused to surrender. Surrounded, outnumbered, freezing, they held the line. When asked to give up, the American response was simple: nuts. As the weather cleared, Allied air power returned with devastating force. German fuel ran out, tanks were abandoned, the offensive collapsed. Hitler's last throw of the dice had failed. The realization settled in. Even surprise could not break American resolve. The Rhine is crossed. By March 1945, the war had crossed into Germany itself. American troops reached the Rhine River, the last major natural barrier protecting the German heartland. When the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen was captured intact, Allied forces surged across. Hitler was furious. But fury could not stop momentum. The Americans were no longer invading Europe, they were dismantling Germany. The collapse of command. Inside Germany, order disintegrated. Cities lay in ruins, railways were shattered, communication broke down. Hitler issued commands to divisions that no longer existed. His generals increasingly ignored him or lied to him. The man who once dominated Europe was now trapped in maps, fantasies, and denial. And still, the Americans advanced. Two fronts, no escape. Narrator. From the east, the Red Army crushed everything in its path. From the west, American, British, and Canadian forces pushed relentlessly forward. Germany was being squeezed from both sides. Hitler had always believed he could defeat enemies one at a time. D-Day destroyed that illusion. Now,
The war had become a vice, and it was tightening. What Hitler never truly understood was how the Americans fought war. Not with reckless charges, not with blind ideology, but with logistics, coordination, and overwhelming production. For every tank destroyed, 2 more arrived. For every unit exhausted, another replaced it. For every mile fought, supplies followed. This was not heroics, it was inevitability. As Allied forces closed in, Hitler retreated deeper underground. Berlin trembled under constant bombardment. The dream of a 1,000-year Reich had lasted just 12 years. Outside the bunker, the world Hitler tried to conquer was ending him. Inside, he refused to accept it. In his final days, Hitler spoke bitterly of betrayal. But history tells a different story. He was not betrayed, he was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by the industrial strength of America. Overwhelmed by enemies who adapted faster than he could imagine. Overwhelmed by a war he could not control once D-Day began. The realization came too late. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life. Days later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The beaches of Normandy had led directly to the fall of Berlin. D-Day was not just a battle, it was not just an invasion, it was the moment Hitler lost control of history. The moment American power stepped fully onto the world stage, the moment tyranny began its irreversible collapse. When Hitler realized D-Day was an American war, the outcome of World War II was already sealed. The rest was only a matter of time.